Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. We are back for the 5th episode, and we have a guest this time. I'm Dexter Henry. Bryan Fonseca over there in the middle. Our first woman to ever join the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. Her name is Princess Streeter. She's the host of the W Podcast, production assistant at ESPN DC Radio, doing her thing. She's been a fan of Backpack Broadcasting for a while. This is actually our first time meeting her. Well, your second time. My first time. She's been following stuff I did in Backpack Broadcasting for a while, so I appreciate your support, sister.
Yes, support.
You've always been supporting us, but now you're here.
Yes, I am. And I'm very glad to be here. It's a funny thing. When I first met Bryan, I actually had to reach out to him because I was in New York, of course. Yes. Which just shows y'all don't ever come to D.C. to see me, but that's cool.
Oh, man, damn. She just put us on blast like that.
No, but I was in New York, and I was actually at the Connecticut Sun and New York Liberty game. And so I had never been to Madison Square Garden, barely ever been to New York. I'm like, it's so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I'm at Madison Square Garden. Oh my God. I'm just here on Media Row. So I'm just looking, I'm like, okay, so who's at the media table? And I'm like, I see a familiar name. I see Bryan Fonseca, and I think it was for the Brooklyn, what did he write for?
It was, Brooklyn, BQE Media.
Right, so I'm sitting here, I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Nobody's ever going to be excited to see him again like that, ever. Nobody.
Because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a familiar face.
I just rolled my eyes.
Instagram, and then he never showed up, so.
Damn.
And she reached out to me.
I did.
And she was like, yo, I thought you were going to be at the game. And I was like, oh, nah. But are you going to be at Big 3 on Sunday?
Yeah.
And then connected there.
So it all worked out, and you still were able to see. So for the people that don't know, as I said, you are the host of the W Podcast, which is a podcast that focuses on the WNBA. Mm-hmm. Yourself and your co-host, who I actually have never met either, but we have also been connected through other people. How'd that come about? How's that going with the W Podcast? Obviously, podcasting is the thing that we like. We're here, we're doing it. How is that in talking about the WNBA, which maybe doesn't get the respect that it deserves as one of the major sports in this country?
Yeah, I love women's basketball. And so when I met Lo, her name is Laureen Iraq, goes by Lo, that's her stage name, as I love to call it.
Shout out to Lo.
Yes, I mean, the sweetest girl ever. She's, of course, a New York native as well. And we make it work. Like, we don't have a full setup like y'all. That's why I was telling Bryan, I was like, yo, y'all setup is like amazing, because for us, we do it basically like through Skype. Like, I'm in DC, she's in New York.
Wow.
And so just kind of putting that together, trying to make it sound like we're in the same room. We didn't want it to sound telephonic, so we had to like get a lot of equipment, an audio board, and all that fun stuff. But yeah, the whole process of how it began is we just met, and we instantly started talking women's basketball. She has a very popular website that covers the WNBA.
Beyond the W, right?
BeyondTheW.com, yes. Shout out to that. Has so many great things planned in their future. So I'm so proud of her for that. And I was like, when I met her, I was like, Beyond the W is a great outlet. At the time, I was living in North Carolina, which is where I'm from. And she was like, wait, like, they know about Beyond the W in North Carolina? I'm like, girl, anything women's basketball, I'm on top of it. So when I finally got to meet her, we just began like cultivating all these ideas, and I was like, it would be great to just have a podcast that's all exclusive women's basketball. And of course, we kicked off with the WNBA season this year. We started at the very beginning with the draft, which was a very loaded and talented draft class. Up until now, we're going to have one of our reflective kind of shows of the season, just to, highlight and celebrate everything that's been going on through the year. But like you asked, I think it's very important just to have a platform and a place where women's basketball fans can come to, because they're out there. I think the really important thing that we focus on is just reaching them. A lot of them is within our demographic. Like, and you think about buying power, and I mean, I think what a lot of the WNBA caters to is children. So, like some of the biggest games is like Camp Day or things like that.
Yeah, a lot of kids out there.
They don't have the buying power. They don't, they're not aware of like schedules and things like that. So we're like, let's reach out to the millennials who watch women's basketball, the young adults, black, white, Hispanic, Latina, Asian, male, female. In that regard, I think I can use that respect. But
in that regard, yes.
But yeah, I mean, just across the board, we're just trying to reach out to people in our age group, and I think we've done a pretty successful job at that. We've only had one guest. I don't know what's taking us so long. We love to hear ourselves talk, I guess. But we only had one guest.
You had Rosgold Anunwa from sideline reporter from the Warriors, who does a great job and for TNT.
Now she's working for, I think, NBA TV and TNT and Turner, so that's amazing for her. And she was like one of our high-profile guests. And of course, we had so many good hits just from that interview alone. And then we have so many great WNBA players and personnel, and even going to try to reach down to women's college basketball and coaches and players just to reach out to and talk to. So yes, everybody, if y'all are listening, y'all love women's basketball, or just basketball fans in general, y'all love to see just good basketball, because it is really good basketball.
Yeah, as a basketball fan, I've always said the WNBA is good basketball. I just love good basketball. I'm a basketball junkie, so I'll watch anything. I know that doesn't always translate with men the same way, where they're like, man, I'm not watching the WNBA. They can't dunk. They can't do this. All of which I think is ridiculous. But I think the thing you said, Princess, I'm going to let Bryan get to you, is that you know the audience you're trying to reach. You're reaching them, and you're doing a great job, the two of you, and also inspiring young women who are looking at people to do things in sports journalism and talk. So I commend you for that. Keep doing what you're doing, sister. Keep doing what you're doing.
Bryan, go ahead, give me my props. Go ahead.
I also want to get your thoughts on, speaking of good basketball, we saw Game 5 last night. Well, we're recording this Thursday, but yeah, last night, WNBA Finals. What do you think about like everything that went on? Because not even just on the court, like we know it was a great game and everything, and it was second time in a row where LA played Minnesota, and it was crazy. We had almost a full-blown comeback at the end, but Minnesota ended up hanging on. And a lot of people were showing love, and I feel like this is something that's been going on, like with the help of social media with the WNBA. Like it's growing through like Twitter and Facebook. I don't know what does that mean for the league necessarily in terms of like money or whatever, but I feel like it's really doing well on social media. So what are your thoughts on it from that, and how good that is to see that come around, even though it's a championship? But yeah.
Yeah, that goes back to that demographic. Who's talking about, who's watching it, who's talking about it, and who can help generate that buzz around the WNBA. My only wish is that, you know, we would talk more about the WNBA during All-Star Weekend, the draft, you know, high-profile games during the regular season, more so than just the playoffs, or like you mentioned, one of the greatest, you know, rivalries that they've had in the league between the Minnesota Lynx and Los Angeles Sparks, which is deservingly getting the attention that it does. And I think part of that is because it's broadcast on ABC, ESPN, while a lot of regular season games are, you know, broadcast on smaller networks like, you know, for Liberty, Madison Square Garden Network. You know, people like from my hometown in North Carolina can't see that. We can't access that. So I think, you know, just a lot of availability, accessibility, which is, you know, not my job to do. That's not. I would be getting paid higher if I was solving those problems. But no, I'm just saying, like, it's just exactly how it's growing and progressing. And I'm just like, for me and Lowe's position as host of the W podcast is just to take advantage of that and just be like, look, this is the league and the avenue that we love. We love women's basketball. We love women performing at a very high level. Because like you said, it allows you to reach back. When you think about the young girls who, you know, have these examples growing up, like, for me, if I ever meet Lisa Leslie, I'm going to cry. Like, I mean, I can imagine it because I feel it coming, like, just like in the way that I'm putting myself out there, and I've been meeting so many WNBA legends. I'm like, when I lock eyes with Lisa Leslie, I'm going to have an emotional rush, just because when I was 7, 8 years old and I saw her dunk for the first time in a game.
I remember that.
You know, yeah, and I'm just like, I've seen it with men because I have 2 older brothers, my dad, my grandfather all taught me about basketball. But when you see a woman doing it, a woman that looks like you, a woman who created a brand, developed the league, spearheaded it, it's like, it's a different experience.
It's a good thing you bring up with Lisa Leslie. Do people forget how much of an impact she not only had on the WNBA, but when you look at women's sports as a whole and what she did for the WNBA as a woman that created her brand, could dunk, super athletic, very beautiful, all those things together, and she used that. Do people forget about how great Lisa Leslie was?
I think so, and I think even with Rebecca Lobo and Cheryl Swoops, those were the first 3, you know, those were the first 3 players to create the WNBA, and then you have Tina Thompson, who was the first player drafted to the WNBA, who was for years the WNBA's all-time leading scorer before Diana Taurasi came along to stamp that record most recently. So you think about the pioneers, even before that, the Nancy Liebermans, the Cheryl Millers, before the WNBA was even crafted and thought of, just, you know, in that I think American Basketball League circuit, you know, just creating that. It's like, you got to remember what they've done for the brand, and how even when there was hardly anyone watching, especially with, you know, we talk about Nancy Lieberman and Cheryl Miller, and there were hardly people watching, paying attention. There was no major broadcast or ESPN. They were doing it for the love of the game, and just that wisdom to look down the line and be like, let's let's just set the tone for what this can be. This can be a billion-dollar entity. This can be a reflection of women at the highest level in sports to inspire the next generation. And you really have to commend those women who, despite, Lisa was a celebrity in her own right, but even, despite all that coming in, she still did it for the love of the game and for the love of young girls.
I want to know this from both of you, actually. So in comparison to, I guess, say the league hasn't been around that long, it's been 20 years, but comparison specifically to the last 5-10 years, do you feel like the perception has changed of the league, like for the better, for worse, or whatever the case may be? Because I talked about earlier how I feel like fans are at least showing it more recognition, but, and for those of you that don't know, I did cover the New York Liberty this year for, BQE Media. And what I noticed when I went to games, there weren't a lot of reporters there. And the ones that were there, it wasn't necessarily, big outlets that were there. I got in there. Right. And there were like people from, ESPNW, but there were a lot of like blogs and things of that nature. So I feel like on one hand, yes, it has improved, like the perception, the image or whatever. But on another hand, like the coverage isn't necessarily there. Right. Or at least from like this level. You're mostly getting it from people who are trying to make their entryway into something better. So it's kind of a stepping stone type of thing.
I'll let Princess talk about it from her perspective, but I think as a man, I don't believe the perception has changed that much among men. I think men still have a lot of negative views towards the WNBA and the game and stereotypes surrounding that hasn't allowed their mind to expand to the game. So that, as I said before, there's still a lot of people who are like, I'm not watching women's basketball. They don't think it's good basketball. I think people who really know basketball, who really love the sport, men and women, those people are watching the games because they know. You look at Kobe's a huge fan of the game. You see Magic Johnson. They know it's high level. These are the best women in the world. And so why would I not?
Have you seen Maya Moore's Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Have you seen all these accolades
that she has? She's one of the best American athletes right now, and that doesn't get talked about. But that's another issue that always happens with women kind of getting pushed to the back burner there. So I think women are supporting the sport. You look at that, you see it from the games. You see a huge presence from the LGBTQ community at the games. They've been heavily supporting, but I still think a lot has to go far with men supporting. So I think when men really support it, it's going to help it a lot.
Is that a win or is that an if?
I say when, because I'm going to believe in the positive and change. I think there are people there are people like myself who are saying, "Hey, I'm watching this." My daughter was, on my lap while I'm watching the Game 5 the other night. I'm having her, so I'm trying to make her see that. Just because I love basketball, and she needs to see positive images of women excelling athletically at the highest level. So I'm always for that. But I think as more men open their mind and change their thinking towards things, which we will touch on later, that I think can happen. But Princess, you tell me what you think the perception is. As Bryan asked, in the NBA, is it changing? Do you think it's actually progressing?
Well, you made a good point when you brought up your daughter, having her in your lap to watch that, because I feel like that's when a lot of guys' minds change when they have a daughter, and when they're passionate about basketball, they have a daughter. Then they recognize, okay, let's give her a positive role model to look at. Let's have her. Let me show her that her highest dreams of being a basketball player are attainable. So now let me turn on the WNBA. And so I think with a lot of guys, like he also mentioned on social media, when the Elena Delle Donne and Lonzo Ball rift happened, basically like a Twitter battle, a lot of it was go back to the kitchen, I hope, how you gonna wish, bad on a kid when nobody watches your game, stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of people are also just doing that to be funny.
It's trolls, it's a lot of trolling and stuff too. But
not that that's right either.
Right. No, absolutely not right.
Yeah, even with men, I don't know. I'm not a man to know if the perception's changing, but at the same time, it's like I'm gonna go with the positive and say hopefully it's a win more than an if. In the near future, that guys, even before they have daughters, recognize that this is the highest level, these are the greatest, women playing basketball in the world. When you look at Maya Moore's resume, and then let's go to the Olympics. They have not lost a game in
crazy
like 6 Olympics. They have not lost a game. And the men this past year was struggling, losing to Argentina, like these little crazy teams and stuff like that. But we still tune in, like you still for the stardom and the you know, fanfare of seeing all these superstars together. But when you look at the talent, like the raw talent, they were beating people. They were breaking their own. Diana Taurasi broke the record for the most threes in one game. The next game, she broke that. She broke that record that had never been accomplished in like 30 years prior. She did that the next game. Something crazy like that. And it's like when you really look at the talent and exactly how hard these women work, what all they achieve, and how they just dominate over anyone else in the entire world, you really just got to think about it. Like,
I don't think they get enough credit for their domination.
Or money.
That too. You know, and that's a whole nother issue. There, just the disparity is for what they do is so great. Real quick before we go to break, and obviously we're talking a lot of WNBA, but NBA preseason is coming up. Really quick, what are you excited about with this NBA season coming up?
Oh my gosh, it's so different. The rosters are completely different from last year, and so I'm just excited to see how everyone's gonna gel. I mean, you got OKC, you got their big three going on, you got everybody who's coming in and out of Cleveland. Derrick Rose is there now, Dwayne Wade is there now, Boston, Kyrie Irving's trying to stand on his own, but Gordon Hayward is trying to get his respect and kind of take over as his own team. Who else is looking all kinds of different?
Everybody. The East looks worse than it's ever been.
The East looks worse than it's ever been. Denver, they had a really good. They beat the Warriors in preseason. Paul Millsap was the greatest player on the floor. I mean, it was just like
preseason.
Yeah, preseason. But I mean, it's still like exciting. I'm like, okay, you know, Houston. I mean, you got Houston. You're trying to see who's going to come. Basically, like who's going to come second behind the Warriors.
Do you have a finals prediction?
Finals prediction. It's way too early, especially with all this is going on.
I know it's too early. February is too early to make that prediction too.
But yeah, I mean, we can go ahead if you want to.
I think I'm going to do my conference finals prediction.
All right, let's hear it.
Golden State.
That was a hard one.
I just side-eyed.
Nobody saw
that. Right. Nobody saw. I just side-eyed the heck out of him. Golden State and OKC.
I'd sign for that right now.
Golden State and OKC. I was gonna say Houston, but until Carmelo got
I want to see OKC.
Right.
Golden State and OKC, Boston and Cleveland.
I'm
okay. Wait. No, we're not done. Then from there, what happens?
No, that's the final.
She said she's not willing to go beyond.
Want me to get the plus minus? How many games?
Like,
okay. I didn't say that.
Right. He did too much.
No, but here's the thing: if you can get to the conference finals, you can go a step further and get to the finals.
I don't want to. Why are you stressing me?
You know what? Let's go to break.
So we're gonna go to break. When we come back, we're gonna talk to Princess about somebody who had a major fail in the NFL, Mr. Cam Newton, disrespecting women. We don't stand for that here on the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about that and what's going with that. Stay tuned on the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. It ain't hard to tell where to get the latest merchandise from Backpack Broadcasting. Gear is now available via tee.pub. Visit the Backpack Broadcasting tee.pub online store to get shirts, hoodies, mugs, and phone cases. Represent your favorite Backpack Broadcasting shows, including the Sports Walk, Sideline Stories, and of course, the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. Check out the special offers for our podcast listeners at http://t.pub/LIC/backpack. Get in the game with your official Backpack Broadcasting gear today. What's up, listeners? You know sometimes how it can be hard just to get from point A to point B. Now, when I have to get anywhere and I don't want to deal with the hassle of public transportation, it ain't hard to tell how I get around. I always make sure to use the best car service app in the game. I'm talking about Lyft. Lyft offers rides in minutes. All you have to do is download the Lyft app, request a ride, and you will be on your way quickly. Lyft is all about happy riders and happy drivers. Take a ride with them and you'll see why 9 out of 10 rides end up with a 5-star rating. Lyft always has amazing offers for new customers, and I'm here to tell our listeners about a great offer today. Lyft is currently offering free ride credit to Ain't Hard to Tell listeners. If you are new to Lyft, then you are eligible, and getting your credit is easy. All you have to do is download the app and use the promo code AHTTPOD to unlock your free credit today. Ain't hard to tell who has the best car app service, so use the code today and ride out loud with Lyft. All right, welcome back to the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. Dexter Henry, Bryan Fonseca here with Princess Streeter of the W Podcast and ESPN production assistant for DC and the radio. And Princess, I know your week has been good. My week has been good, but it has not been a great week for Cam Newton, quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. Are you a Carolina Panthers fan? You're from North Carolina. Are you a Carolina Panthers fan?
No.
Oh.
I don't really watch the NFL, to be honest. And I actually have not had a great week, and I'll tell you why. I got a great welcome to New York.
Uh-oh.
Yes. I got a great welcome to New York by having my car impounded. I'd only been here for 5 hours, and I came out of a meeting yesterday, and I walked down, and there was this big old white paper across my windshield, and I'm like, Jesus, what is this? And NYPD was in a truck on the passenger side of my car, blocking me from getting out. Apparently, I had gotten the ticket at 4:17 p.m., and they give you 2 hours before they tow your car. I walked outside at 6:13. They were on the way.
Damn.
I had 4 minutes to get all my ducks in a row, so I couldn't do it, so I just had to wait it out, and at 1 o'clock this morning, I finally got my car free. And it is now in a parking deck, safe and sound.
Safe and sound, all because you just didn't see the signage of it. What was the situation? Not being a commercial?
Okay, it's something like commercial, but the thing is that
the signs in New York are crazy though.
But the thing is that there was a parking meter to the side, right beside my car. There was a parking meter, so I'm like, oh, I'm good. I got the meter running. I'm fine. And then I come out to a boot. Yeah. Embarrassment. People are just, some of which y'all New Yorkers, y'all are so annoying. There were people objecting to this. I'm not objecting to that. I've got my car booted before. When you get your car booted, there's a crowd. People they put the thing on your car, and people have to look they don't know what the sticker is. They're looking by what happened to the car? Are we gonna do? Here's my annoyance, and I'm a born and raised New Yorker. Why are you looking at me if you're not gonna help me? Exactly. Are you gonna help me? It doesn't benefit you at all. It was a crowd of 6 or 7 people watching us dispute with the NYPD. I'm trying to do my little southern smooth talking hey, if I slide you 100 real quick, can we just make all this go away? And he's looking nah, it's already been processed, boo. They coming. So it was I'm just trying to talk to NYPD, try to figure out exactly what's happening, where I gotta go next. There is a crowd of people watching me, and I'm just
you know what they're saying? They're like this, yo.
Or just making these faces
I can't imagine. I can't imagine because I don't drive yet, but that has happened to me multiple times in Grand Theft Auto.
Yo, you did not just link that to Grand Theft Auto.
Get out of here.
You did not bring it back. All right, so Princess is weak.
Brian, this is money.
Princess
money in that game too.
Got her car back.
I got it back.
She did not lose her car. However, Cameron Newton, quarterback of the Panthers, he lost an endorsement, and that was with Dannon. Nice. See how we tied it all back in?
I like how you did that.
Yeah. We tied it all back in. Now, for those of you who might not be in the know or don't know what happened, Cam Newton was at a press conference on Wednesday in which a reporter from Jourdan Rodrigue from, I forget what outlet she's from, but she was at the press conference which Cam Newton was talking about.
Might have been Charlotte Observer.
I think it was the Charlotte Observer, actually, to be exact. And she asked Mr. Newton a question about the physicality of route running by his receivers. However, Cam started laughing when she asked the question and said, quote, "I think it's funny to hear a female talk about routes. It's funny." And then he made a couple of faces which were condescending.
That's the key.
And
the faces.
And the faces.
And actual laughter.
And actual laughter.
Yeah.
Now, before I get into it, and Brian talks about it, Princess, you are a woman journalist in the sports journalism field. I'm pretty sure you would not like to be referred to as a female. And for those of you out there who's thinking, what's the big deal with that? You were lost, but it's not on me to say that. I'm gonna let Princess tell y'all the reaction to that.
Yeah, so we can just talk about terminology and just the impact that it has on just the respect factor. I mean,
yeah.
And when you realize how surprised I was when you shared my sentiments and why women don't like being called females, because it really just minimizes us to, like you said, a species. There's no difference between a female human versus a female squirrel, a female dog on the street. Like, I am a woman, I have humanity, I have thoughts, I think it's what separates like humans and animals is like we have thoughts to process like what we do past like survival. Like, we're thinking about, oh, let me go get groceries and stuff like that. All they're thinking is like, let me eat. So I'm like, I process, like I live life. I think like I need you to respect my humanity, my womanhood. And I feel like a piece of that is what's missing, you know? And when guys are like, yeah, those females over there, those female sports reporters who like you're sitting in, I've been in the press box all day, I'm here at your press conference, they open the floor for questions, and you think I'm not going to ask you about routes, you and Kelvin Benjamin, like, you know what I'm saying, like running routes. And I'm just like, we've still got a long way to go when it comes to the respect of women in so many industries. It's not just sports, it's the tech industry, it's business, it's finance, where just women are here. You know, there's a platform with sports because all eyes are on Cam Newton. You know, he's being recorded saying this, but it's just like in so many avenues of day-to-day life and how we women operate and step into, you know, different roles, especially male-dominated fields. Like, we're still fighting for just respect.
Yeah, and I'll let Bryan touch on this, but I just think it's because men have done a horrible job of respecting women, period. And I think you see that, and that's so ingrained and passed down into men of younger generations, and we're now holding them accountable. In terms of holding people accountable, I think what bothers me is, one, I don't see what was funny about the question that the woman asked. I still don't understand what Cam Newton found funny. And Cam Newton, who as a player I really liked, he has been going on a downward hill slope since he won the MVP. And there's a lot of things I could get into as far as that, but it's disappointing. What was disappointing to me, Princess and Bryan, was that not one man, and you know obviously sports journalism is a male-dominated industry, not one man in that press conference, another journalist, followed up with a question to Cam Newton and been like, yo, what's so funny about what she asked? Because we don't see what's funny. But I get it. Everybody wants to hide behind this sexism. Let's call it what it is. It's a sexist statement. And nobody wants to lose their jobs, lose their position of being able to access and cover the Carolina Panthers. But I think it's a bad job when not one male reporter, not one man stepped up and said that at all whatsoever. And I think when we don't step up for our women, we don't show the respect for our women. This is why we have comments like that.
Yeah, I mean, and another element of this too was like, of all people, it could have been like, why Cam Newton? Because I knew that he was gonna get it, like, for obvious reasons. He was gonna get it worse than just about anybody else on that front. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think the reporters may have just been shell-shocked in combination with wanting to protect, you know, their access to Panthers practice. But I'm more so surprised, like, why are we not past that yet? Because I saw the headline and I saw what he actually said. Because I didn't believe it, or not that I didn't believe it, but I didn't process it. And then I saw it, Cam Newton, how he reacted. The faces is what got me, and then I was just like, really, we're still doing this? It was more so like that. However, not to kind of like poo-poo that, but there's also another element to this we learned about today, just a few hours ago. So Dexter, if you want to introduce that.
Yeah, I'll introduce that. So the journalist Jourdan Rodrigue now is, you know, everybody does their digging and everybody's looking for receipts, right, on Twitter. So everybody's looking, Princess, and they've dug up the fact that she had some racist tweets from a couple years ago in which she laughed at her father making racist jokes on a trip and also used the N-word a couple of times. Now,
exactly like
what I see being problematic here is I saw some people on Twitter saying, oh, well, this woman's not a good person because she had some racist tweets, and sort of kind of justifying what Cam Newton says. And what I would say is, to ask Princess, is what is your reaction to that? Those people who are trying to justify what Cam Newton did because of this woman's previous racist tweets.
It's completely unjustifiable. Like, it's two separate things. When you think about Cam Newton and the position that he holds as a public figure and as an athlete and as, you know, someone that people follow, I don't really pass out the role model, you know, term that often nowadays, because some of these guys are a little crazy. But yeah, it's definitely unjustifiable. What Cam Newton said and the manner that he said it was it was really disgusting. It's like, bro, this is not the 1950s where you're surprised. You shouldn't be surprised to see a woman in the locker room. You shouldn't be surprised to see a woman, being play-by-play. You shouldn't be surprised to see a woman headlining SportsCenter, doing more than just managing two talking heads and opinion. That's a lot of the ways that the sports shows have kind of gone in that format with two men and a woman's in between. Like, well, let me just introduce the next topic. How about you have a woman that has the opinion on that side? You know what I'm saying? Like, you shouldn't be surprised.
First take, they had Josina Anderson.
Yes, and Josina, first of all, is a UNC Tar Heel.
She is.
Like myself, and so of course she gets all my respect for that. But just the way that she's so involved with the NFL and how eloquent she is, and that should not be a surprise to have someone who's that informed. And Josina is heavy in the NFL world.
Heavy.
Men respect her so much. So even for her and all the knowledge that she has, all the connections that she's built, there should be no surprise there. Even if it's someone who's just starting out their first day covering the Carolina Panthers or the Atlanta Falcons or whatever, still should be no surprise. It's just Cam he's just got a lot of growing up to do still. And I mean, being in the public, your rookie contract is up. You got this big old whopping. He's grown.
He's almost 30.
You got this big old whopping contract. It's like, Cam, we thought you would learn by now, but
it's my problem with this is obviously like both wrong, but that's my thing here is that they're both wrong and people just don't want to accept that.
Oh yeah. Going back to Jourdan, I forgot about the racist tweet. Yeah, she wrong for that. I don't care if it was 5, 10, 12 years ago. I mean, you dropping the N-word and you're not African American and you're using it in a derogatory context is completely wrong.
And she
didn't delete it. Like, now it's way too late, but it's just like
she probably has, but
that doesn't absolve. And I don't think any of us are saying that doesn't absolve Cam Newton of sexism.
Both of them are wrong.
Yes.
He's wrong for sexism, and she's wrong for racism.
Absolutely.
And it can be that. My issue is that people just want to take sides, just for the sake of taking sides. This is where I just get off.
And that's corny. And I'm gonna call people out. If you're black, and even if you are a Cam Newton fan, and you know that he messed up, you know that women are an oppressed group. You can't support sexism and justify it and then be like, oh man, I'm against racism. As an oppressed group of people, as black people, you can't put down women. You can't put down other groups that are oppressed and then expect people to be cool with that. That's not cool. Now, one of the things I think you brought up, Princess, that's very interesting. You talked about, hey, this is in the 50s. You shouldn't be surprised to see a woman broadcasting. You shouldn't be surprised to see a woman sitting here and talking with two guys, actually giving opinions and not being a moderator, which you're right, we see too much of on TV. You've been in locker rooms, you've been in the space, you've been around sports for a while, and sometimes you hear crazy things and you get crazy questions as a woman journalist, and we were talking about this before we came on. What are some of the things you've heard, experienced, and do you feel like we're progressing in that manner? Like, are men actually being more accepting of women being around sports journalism?
I think it kind of depends on if you're cute or not. Seriously, for men, because they're always going to give you a side eye, and it also depends on what role you're in. If you're in that very opinionated role, they're going to be like, well, she doesn't really know her stuff. She's just a talking head. She's just throwing her opinion out there. She could have looked up the stats 5 minutes beforehand. I've heard someone say that.
Damn.
Talking about Jamel Hill on the Six. Her and Michael got into like a debate about, I forgot what it was, but so I was just like, all right. Then it also depends on if you're cute or not. Like, it just does. A lot of this is very, very appearance based, but just me, myself, and my own experience. When I was in college, I was covering a UNC and Duke game, a men's basketball game, and so the placement in a lot of arenas, if it's full on press row, they'll move you up a little bit higher, kind of out the way. You still see the game, still in the atmosphere. No big deal. So I moved up higher, and there was a former NBA player there. From the 80s, 90s, I would say, early 80s, yeah. And so I was like, wow, such a pleasure to meet you. You're a legend in this, in this game, and just everything that you know. And this is what I'm trying to do. This and the third. I'm like 19 at the time, and he's like, yeah. So did you know that about me? I was, saying things that I had known about him. He's like, yeah. Did you know that about me before you watched the documentary? It was a very popular documentary that came out about him, probably like 6 months prior. And I was like, Yeah, I did actually. And I told him another nugget about himself, which he thought was a little bit more.
You were surprised?
Yeah, he was more surprised. He thought that was, and I think the way I said it was very matter of fact, like, bro, don't try to play me.
Yeah.
And so I think with that, he was more like, okay, all right, cool. Like, you passed my test, you passed my trivia. You know what I'm saying? And I think.
Do you think that same test or that same attitude is given towards a man who's also in sports journalism at the same age as you? Do you feel like he's getting that same directive question towards
Absolutely
him?
not. I don't think ageism was a factor there. I think it was more so just sexism. Like, for women, they think that. I think a lot of them think we're in the locker rooms just to look at the guys. They think we're on TV just to be TV personalities. Like, they don't really, get the concept of women sitting down, being able to dissect football, even going past broadcasting. Let's talk about coaching. Let's talk about ownership. Let's talk about, being general managers and making the decisions and having hands in the processes of $1 billion NFL team. People still think that's very odd. Like, you think about Jen Welter, who was coaching for the Arizona Cardinals,
Yes.
Becky Hammond, who's being an assistant to the Spurs. She won they won the summer league 2 years ago with her as the head coach. Yeah, and I'm just like, with all the success that we still make, people are still just very skeptical of women being in those roles when it comes to sports.
I forgot the show, but I saw, like, in response to the Cam Newton thing, they had a football show, and it was all women, like, hosting, producing, and things like that. So I thought that was pretty cool too. Like,
I love that ESPN has the trifecta, which had they had them up there before what's her name left, and it was just like, that was a big piece. I mean, it was three Caucasian women. You still can add some mixing up some diversity in there, but it's still women talking about sports, interviewing men, hosting like a segment right here to just have the dialogue about the sport or whatever the topic is. And I think that's so important, just to show that we are leading in that, right.
Speaking of, getting back to Cam Newton real quick, do we care about Dannon ending their sponsorship with him in the aftermath of this? Because I just saw that Shannon Sharp had a theory that Cam Newton, he says that they wanted out after he did the touchdown and then put his fists in the air, as opposed to, like, in response to the sexist comments.
I mean, that could be true, but we're never probably going to know the story in that. The bottom line is, Dannon has a right to not want to align themselves with any kind of sexist comments. I personally don't blame him. I mean, and maybe I'm kind of glad. Maybe this will be a wake-up for Cam to be like, there are consequences for saying these things, and maybe you need to learn. I think where Cam failed, and Princess, you can let me know if you agree, is I don't think he got out in front of this. He wasn't apologetic. The reporter claims that she spoke to him and he didn't apologize. He should have put out a statement, not the Carolina Panthers. He should have came out.
Said anything?
I haven't heard him say anything. I don't think to this point we've heard anything. Maybe that happens by the time this is released, but we haven't heard anything. And I think that's very telling, right? You're not willing to come and meet a woman journalist and really level with her and understand. Even if you don't understand, like, he might not fully understand why he should not use the word female when it comes to describing women, but somebody needs to educate him on that soon. And as y'all said it before, he's too grown now. All right,
he is grown. And like you mentioned this earlier, it's very important for men to tell other men that that's not acceptable, because we have been telling them for years that we're not comfortable. I've told every man I've come across, it's like, yo, y'all female, stop right there. Y'all, especially not the B word, like, that's just, the conversation's completely over at that point. But it's like, all y'all females do, or females like that, stuff like that. I'm like, pause. Like, I'm gonna tell you why I don't like it, but for some reason, it doesn't really resonate unless another man is like, look, let's talk about this for a second. A woman just told you she was uncomfortable about this. I'm sure this isn't your first time hearing it. And going by example, and I feel like in a lot of times in conversation between guys, like, a lot of things you might say, especially with women. I mean, conversation in general, you get really comfortable. You don't really think about everything that you're saying. You can just can kind of roll off the tongue. And so it's more like just being conscious of that and thinking like, okay, so what I'm saying now to my homeboy in our private talks is really going to affect him when he goes out in public and speaks a certain type of way.
It also doesn't help that a lot of us are stupid.
I'm not going to put myself there because I consider myself pretty smart. There's a lot of stupid people. One thing before we go to break that I want to ask you, because you touched upon opportunities for women beside just in broadcasting. You talked about coaching and management and things of that nature. And I think for things to change in anything in diversity, there has to be people in positions of power that can actually say, hey, we need to put women here. We need more Latinos here in journalism. We need more black people in journalism, more Asian people here, et cetera, et cetera. I was listening to a radio show, I believe I was Mike Francesa, actually. I was listening to him earlier summer, and I heard this, the Pope, he's called the Pope here, but he
Not by me.
said that there never would be, somebody called and said, hey, do you ever think there will be a woman to coach in the NBA? And he was like, oh, no, are you crazy? It'll never happen. And you brought up Becky Hammon, who is, coached the summer league team as assistant on the Spurs, very highly regarded in the NBA. I think definitely could coach. I say Mike Francesa is tripping for that kind of reaction. What do you say to that? And do you think we could see a woman coach? I think the NBA be first because they're just the most progressive league, but could you see a woman coaching in the WNBA in the near future?
I honestly think that when Greg Popovich retires in the next, I'll say about 5 or 6 more years that he has, if he has any say in the matter, he's going to point directly to Becky Hammon. Greg Popovich has been woke. I mean, everything you ask about Greg Popovich, he is one to, even just recently, he was one to, criticize whiteness and the power that, white men have. Right. You need that from white men. The power that white men have, and he just addressed the, what's it called?
He addressed the issue of white supremacy and
privilege.
Privilege, yeah.
He addressed his own privilege, and I think that's so important. And him being an older man, you don't see that often. A lot of older men are stuck in their ways. The way they were raised is the way that they're going to stay. Things like that. He's one that's a progressive thinker. I think going beyond the league, just himself, and the power that he has, the resume that he has, the team that he's built over time. If they ask him, who do you want your successor to be? I think it's going to be Becky Hammon. She was offered a head coaching job at the University of Florida this past season, and she didn't take it. Everyone was like, "Oh, Becky, this would be amazing for their women's basketball program." Everyone's like, "This would be amazing for you. You can dominate in the field of women's college basketball." And we never heard anything else about it. They hired another coach, and I was like, "She's coming for that spot." That first, she's proven herself. Like I said, her summer league success just being a very calculated player. Everything Greg Popovich says about her is that she's very intelligent. She knows basketball. She knows plays. She knows spacing. She knows placement. She knows how NBA players move versus college players. How you got to kind of let them have their, they're grown men. You got to let them. They're going to have some pushback. Things like he says she understands that, and I'm like, when you have all that together and the support of a Hall of Fame coach behind you, it's inevitable, and I think she's going to be, I don't see anybody else coming close to her. I think Nancy Lieberman is like a consultant for the Sacramento Kings. Yeah, but I don't think she's actually in an official coaching position. So for someone to just kind of move from assistant to head, I definitely say Becky.
Yeah, and you're right, because you just touched on this, she's in the right system. Like all the places you can be to kind of break down that barrier, San Antonio is a place, and they've kind of demonstrated why they're very progressive in that aspect. And that's if another team doesn't, snatch her up first.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's good. It's definitely going to be interesting. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we have a lot of things to talk about. You know how we do in the third segment. It's always about music, entertainment, some of the crazy stuff going on in the world of sports. We'll talk more about that when we continue on Ain't Hard to Tell.
Sports Guru is the place where fans talk about sports via video. All videos are 60 seconds or shorter. Sports Guru makes the video look more professional and fun by adding automated on-screen graphics. You can follow your favorite sports by team, trending, new, or by people you follow, and more. Type in the title of your video and it will auto-magically go into your on-screen graphics. It's just that simple. Tag your teams and publish sports. Let's talk sports.
The best new sports web series is here. It's from Backpack Broadcasting, and it's called The Sports Walk. The Sports Walk is a series where diverse sports fans take a walk and share their views at the intersection of sports and society. The entire first season is now available on Backpack Broadcasting's YouTube channel and backpackbroadcasting.com. See what other sports fans have to say about a variety of issues in the world of sports. Watch all 13 episodes from season 1 and take the Sports Walk today. All right, Bryan is laughing before we
Y'all
even
are
get
hilarious.
back. And we're laughing in this continuation of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast as we're joined by Princess Streeter of the W Podcast. Great podcast. You guys have to check that out. Really great podcast talking about the WNBA, everything going on in sports. Ladies, support that. Men, more importantly, really support that.
That's what I'm talking about.
We really need that. But, you know, we got some serious topics. We talked a little bit about Cameron Newton and his ridiculousness. But there's always this crazy stuff going on in the world of sports, guys. Always somebody once a week does something that you're just like, what's going on?
Once
all
a
right?
week?
Yeah, maybe multiple times a week, probably, right?
We just called it at the right time.
Well, I'm going to be completely honest here. I am not the biggest hockey guy here. I'm not the biggest hockey person. But former NHL forward Jerry Hudler brought new meaning to the term sky high. He was on a plane and we requested cocaine.
Yes.
He wanted to get high.
And he
Cocaine
tried to
is
pee.
a hell of a drug.
And he tried to pee on the food cart on the flight too.
And he tried. So I mean, I feel like he probably was already high. When you hear things like this, Princess, in the world of sports, and somebody is trying to get high on a plane, higher than they're already high, what do you? I don't even know what to say. I don't know if there's anything to say to this.
First of all,
Hold on.
he showed up high. There was no trying to get high.
Do you care to have some more details to this?
Throw some in there.
Okay.
He did it in the bathroom. He was
Okay,
high.
hold on. Slow down. So according to a report from Czech newspaper, the Delta Airlines flight staff on that trip has accused Hudler of having a belligerent outburst on the plane in which he demanded cocaine from a flight attendant. That flight attendant assumed Hudler's request for coke was in reference to soda, but he allegedly further clarified that he was in the market for the white powder. This is from CBS Sports. Do we want
Sugar
more
booger.
details to that?
Booger sugar.
Let's see. He wanted coke.
How ridiculous are you that you have to clarify your desire for cocaine and then say, yo, I want some of that white powder?
Just go and we'll know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
like-
I don't do it, but you know what I'm saying.
Do y'all still call it booger sugar? I feel like back in the 70s is what they called it.
I've heard that term from older people. I have never said that term in my life, and I hope we never say that on this program again.
Oh, I like it. Okay.
Now, I'm not knocking you for saying it. But
Oh, I hope we never have to talk about that.
that would have been better than asking for some of that white powder. I'm just saying. That would have been
Maybe.
better.
Okay. So apparently, yeah, he was accused of doing cocaine in the plane's bathroom and then attempting to urinate on a food court. It's very confusing why he wouldn't just pee in the bathroom if he was already there doing cocaine, but that's neither here nor there. I like this writer. Who wrote that?
Pete Blackburn, who
I like
covers
you,
hockey.
Pete, because that's
I
so
like
true.
the story, period.
Why would you just?
It's
why would you
hilarious.
just pee in the bathroom?
I think so. I wish somebody had video of this.
Do you have a wild airplane or party story that, I mean, I don't want to say
Nothing that's going to top that. I'll tell you that
Oh,
much.
guys, here's
Nothing
the
that's gonna
kicker.
top
In
that.
2015, Hudler won the NHL's Lady Byng Trophy, given to the player adjudged to have exhibited the best type of sportsmanship
Yes.
and gentlemanly conduct combined
Maybe
with the
he
high
was just
standard of
giving
playing.
everybody coke, so everybody was like, with coke in the league is like, yo, he's a great sportsman. Maybe that's why
I
he
got
got
that
it.
There's always something at the end, but yes.
I feel like coke is a big thing in hockey. Remember Aaron Andrews' boyfriend was like big on coke?
You missed
Yeah.
the part where it says he accepted the award while shoeless.
Oh, he was high then too.
He's high, too.
He was high in a suit. Oh, he had on a suit and no shoe. Yeah.
Sometimes you got to
Wait,
rock
is
the
there
suit, no
video?
shoes,
Hold
man.
on, hold on.
There's a video. Yeah,
All
I
right.
think. Yeah,
He got it from Russell Peters. He's
So the
wearing
video of
socks.
this? Oh,
Yes.
video of him
He
doing
has
that.
red socks. This is not great audio for the people listening.
I mean, yeah, well, no, because nobody can see it, but you can go check this video out yourself. if you
CBSSports.com.
want
He
to.
accepts the award. He has a full two or three-piece suit.
on.
I want to say three just because it'd be funnier if it's a three-piece suit. And he has red dress socks on, and he's accepting the award.
Hi.
His face is not
Yeah.
red, but he's blinking a lot.
Cocaine
he's
is a hell of a
smiling.
drug.
He's smirking.
I didn't know you could function on cocaine until I saw Wolf on Wall Street, where they were just like he would hit the coke and then go start his and have like orange juice. Like I didn't know you
Start
could.
his day. Not show up to his meetings all on the time, but he was powering through. We are not by any means promoting.
Yeah.
use
No.
of drugs.
I just didn't know.
I just want to be clear.
That's how that could work. I thought like you do cocaine, you got to sit down for a while and like
I don't know.
adjust.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know the effects of my body. We are not saying that you
neither.
should do what you saw on Wolf of Wall Street. He was very successful, but then you saw a
Not
part
for
where
long.
he couldn't drive his car, and that's all. If you didn't see the movie, you wouldn't know.
Oh,
but
and he was so up.
Yeah, I've never even smoked weed.
He
so,
definitely,
like,
he definitely was. So kids, we're not saying to do drugs at all.
Word.
Whatsoever.
All right, next topic.
Yeah. We're gonna move off of that. 'Cause
Yeah.
We're having to explain ourselves too much.
We're backtracking.
One of the other things we saw this week that kind of got into a issue, if you want to say, of cultural appropriation was Jeremy Lin. He's rocking the dreads. He's got some
With the
dreads this
fade.
year. With the fade.
That's
with
cold.
the fade on the side. So Jeremy Lin has got. Princess, you're shaking your head. Jeremy Lin, for people who don't know, is Asian American basketball player. Had his Linsanity run with the New York Knicks. Now plays for the Brooklyn Nets, one of their starting guards, and he's rocking the dreads. Kenyon Martin, former Net great, if you want to say, he's not feeling the dreads. What was his quote, Brian? What was Kenyon Martin's quote?
He was like, I appreciate
He
that
said,
I have
"Stop trying
dreads
to
and
be
you
black,"
have.
basically.
Yeah, Kenyon Martin said that.
So
Yeah.
Kenyon Martin came and said, stop trying to be black. There's always obviously an issue, I think, sometimes within the black community where it's like somebody tries to take something that's from our culture and do it, and it's cultural appropriation. Is this a case of that? Is this problematic, Princess? Are you with Kenyon Martin on this? And what are your thoughts on Jeremy Lin rocking the dreads?
It should be noted that Kenyon Martin also has Chinese tattoos on his forearm or arm.
That was Jeremy Lin's. Yeah, that was.
Even though Jeremy Lin is not Chinese, let's
No,
also be clear
he's
about that too.
from Taiwan.
Taiwan,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, that got interesting because I didn't know that. So basically, I'm not with it. I think certain hairstyles that were created from not even African Americans, from African roots, I think those should be left exclusively to African American people of the African diaspora, I'll say. And there's always that rebuttal like, well, y'all put in white people hair in y'all head and y'all dye y'all hair blonde and stuff. My reasoning for that is because most of the styles that I'm talking about, braids, locks,
I had cornrows
certain
before.
style.
I would pay for pictures of that.
High school.
Ew.
I had an afro.
Ew. I bet they weren't straight. Were they straight or were they crooked?
Oh, she coming at your neck right now, like
They had to be crooked.
crooked.
There was I think there was.
I mean, the parts.
Who was
I'm
doing
not talking
your
about the style, I'm
hair?
talking about the parts.
my older sister.
Oh.
Okay, so we're gonna get off topic, but who cares?
No, we're coming back to Jeremy Lin.
Oh, we're coming back.
And we will have pictures of this later for people watching the video. We are going to somehow get pictures.
I have to find pictures. I was 16. I started growing out my hair.
Is it curly or is it like a fro?
No, it was a fro.
Is it kinky?
I had a
Okay.
fro. I played basketball with it. I ran track with it. Yeah.
I just cannot picture him like that.
I can't either, but there's pictures.
This is my
apparently.
junior year of high school, right? So I had the afro. I wanted to get it braided. Got the cornrows 3 different times. During basketball season too, had a do-rag, had to keep it right, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, so I used to rock with that. I grew out my hair for 366 days, and then I finally cut it. In the summer, it was like from May 31st, 2010 to June 1st, 2011. And yeah, then I got back to like whatever this is.
Yeah,
Actually, no. I had a high top fade for a while. and
Or
then I
maybe
went
people
back
were like, whatever.
Wow,
the
you
hell
were
is going on here.
experimenting.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he as a Puerto Rican man, he had the cornrows, but we're talking about Jeremy Lin as an Asian American man rocking
Right.
the dreads. Just to get back to your point, you were saying that you feel that some of these styles should be for people of the diaspora.
Right, because a lot of them have been.
No, there are no pictures on my Instagram.
A lot of them have been, when they are worn on African Americans, they have been deemed unkempt,
Yes.
dirty, unprofessional. Basically, those are kind of like the 3 points that you kind of get to with it. Then you get to that's a lot of why the Kardashians got flack, or these high, like catalog magazines catch flack, because it's like, oh, so when you want to wear, or Katy Perry, when you want to wear purple braids, you know, and
Now
take
it's
that
cool.
from us. One, it's cool, and second of all, it's marketable. Like, you make millions off of that. Zendaya, who's half African American,
Yep.
she apparently, someone said she smelled like she smokes marijuana, and it's just like, there's so many, it's the narrative of it. It's like, and then I think black people just kind of look cuter with locks and braids.
There's actually more layers to this, and I know because
Yeah, definitely.
I researched this and I wrote about it for Nets Daily, and basically Jeremy Lin said in his piece for the Players Tribune, which he was talking about the hair, like he wanted to know, like, is he offending anybody? He wanted to know from people like that, and he talked about it with his teammates, Ronnie Hollis Jefferson, Karis
Ronnie
LeVert.
don't count.
Damn.
See what he be wearing? Like,
Damn.
Karis LeVert suggested what type of braids should he get. Ronnie Hollis Jefferson was like, I'll grow out my dreads with you. D'Angelo Russell, he asked for his.
That's
This is not like a solidarity
That's more that
thing.
unity stuff.
This
And
is
you know
not a
I
solid.
like that.
Like,
Oh yeah, let's grow these
because
braids
you're
together.
because you, an Asian American man, are growing your dreads out. I'm with you. I got your back.
Nah,
No, bro.
Nah.
Yeah, but
And he's not even growing them out. Those are the Fetty Wap extension dreads. I know he had that crazy mohawk, but it don't lock up like that.
Yeah, but I will
not
say
here for
this.
that.
I will, not that I'm defending. I don't give a damn about whatever. But he's just saying like
We do.
Like
Tell him 2 times.
yeah, but he's just saying like. Basically, like he's approaching this, and he wrote to people like, "Yeah, let me know if I'm offending anybody, whatever." Like
I
he
didn't
seems
see that, 'cause I
he
showed a
seems
roll
like-
back.
Yeah, it's,
But here's the
all
thing.
here in the players. He
Here's the-
seems like the kind of dude like if he's being offensive, then he'll be like, "All right, I'll go back to wearing like whatever."
Okay, but here's the thing, and Princess, you let me know if you were thinking about this too.
Okay.
In all his, and Pablo Torre, I think, also wrote a piece on this too. In all his research, if you want to say, and going and talking to some black players in the league, his teammates, should he do this? Not one of them was like, "Nah, son, you might want to chill on that." Like the best response he got was from Rondae Hollis Jefferson, who I'd like to talk to about this. You were like, "Oh, let's do this in unity together." Like, now look, I mean, I don't know, and Princess, I'm going to go back to another thing. You were talking about how sometimes the rebuttal will be from people who are like, "Oh, well, black people, you've had to straighten your hair, you've had to do these things for your hair," and historically we know that with the hair, straightening it was to conform to standards of white beauty, right? And if you didn't do that, you
acceptance.
weren't going to get hired, you weren't going to get a job here because your hair was too kinky, nappy, unkept, as you said before. Is that an excuse for people that are coming back with this rebuttal? Like what's your response to that?
Definitely not. There's still so many layers that you have to peel back about slavery, about Jim Crow, about white supremacy. You know, when it comes to, because if you go back to our roots, especially like I was saying this earlier to you guys, I was like, it's a lot tougher when it comes to cultural appropriation when it comes to black women.
Yeah.
African women, their hair, it can mean signs of like, you know, affluence or power, or like, it can mean so many different things. We've passed that to our culture now, like I said, throughout the diaspora on so many different continents. And even when we don't think about it, like even sometimes with women, we could be tore up on the inside, but as long as our hair looks fly, we're gonna go out and conquer the day. It's something just about hair and that just connectivity to our spirits that just runs very deep. And so when throughout years past slavery, and you have the minstrel shows that depict us in all types of different ways, or just crazy stereotypes throughout history that have made us and what we have naturally seem ugly, just not beautiful. Now for it to just come right back around, make a full circle, and it's not even that we're reclaiming it and getting the marketing and value for it, or we're getting the praise for it. It's a different culture that it gets it after hundreds of years of being slapped down for what we naturally have. Another culture gets to take that on, and all of a sudden it's beautiful, it's trendy, it's worth millions. Like, that's insulting, and that's why, you know, black women are just so. We're just so bothered by cultural appropriation. Everybody's like, it's just a hairstyle. It doesn't matter. Anybody can wear braids. You know, it's more than just a hairstyle.
One thing I'll say there, with you saying all that, and I completely agree with you, I think you're 100% right, I am also not surprised that the brothers here, the black men, do not see that.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh yeah, we're going to grow our dreads together in unity. Yo, Ronnie Hollis Jefferson, I like you, but nah. Nah, bro. We ain't linking arms and linking dreads. Nah.
But you know what though? This actually, what you said, like they're taking it basically from your culture. And that also sounds like, remember the whole thing about the N-word, and it's like, oh, how come they could say it and we can't? And that whole thing where white people were trying to be like, oh, when you guys say it in rap songs, it's offensive, but how come when we repeat the lyrics, or how come when we say it in our spare time, it's offensive? And it's just a matter of people not getting not even what it means, but just not understanding culture.
Yeah, and sometimes some things in culture is not for you, and I'm okay with saying that. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
that's fine.
The culture ain't for everybody.
I'm not trying to take something from somebody else's culture. It's not what I'm here for.
And let's be real. Let's be real about like what culture is, because we know like if people are talking about culture, they're obviously talking about black culture, and if white people are talking about it, they're usually talking about taking things from black culture, because they're not talking about their own. They're never talking about that, or just about ever. So there's also that. There's also another wrinkle to this Jeremy Lin thing, for what it's worth, where he talked about like he had conversations with, let's see, Rondé D'Lo, Karis LeVert, somebody who's an African American on the Nets staff named Savannah Hart. Talked about the process, how he was really unsure about getting dreads because he was worried about appropriating black culture. She said if it wasn't his intention. She said that if it was intention to be dismissive of another culture, Jeremy says, then it may be an opportunity to learn about that culture. To that you say what?
No. No.
I like that simple answer. She was like, nah.
No. Changing your hairstyle does not teach you anything. I mean, it can give people the insight of what all we go through to, grow our hair, maintain our hair. Like a lot of people don't know. How long do you think, so if I got braids in my hair, how long do you think that could take to do?
Oh, it takes hours, doesn't it?
How many? How long do you think it's taking?
I've literally watched it, so I know.
So from what my friends have told me when they've got their hair done, usually it takes like an entire afternoon, just about. Like
more.
4,
11
6
hours. 11 hours.
I've seen 10, 11, 12 hours. I've seen it.
I've seen 6, 8, 4, 6, 8, yeah.
Yeah, 11 hours. Like, is that?
Basically an entire afternoon.
So, but even Jeremy Lin, like, you don't know that, like, and that doesn't, you putting fake dreads in your hair does not teach you that, or everything that I just said about our cultural roots, how important it is to us about spirituality in hair and freedom and all that kind of essence of being a woman, or all that essence of being black. Like, you don't learn any of that just by changing your hairstyle.
So would that be?
A lot of people don't. Yeah, a lot of people don't seek to learn that. They're just like, ooh, that's such a cool hairstyle. I love that. I wish my hair could do that. Oh, it can in some regard.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. It's not even about figuring out the history or the people that it affects.
So with that being said, are you surprised at the lack of pushback from the people he worked with?
I think they're corny for that. Like, it's corny. Like, it's like, y'all have black mamas, I know y'all have black sisters, I know y'all have black cousins, and even then you are black. So even if you haven't done enough research to learn more about yourself and where you come from, I think that makes you very corny, and that in itself is ignorance. And I feel like if you tell a guy who's not of your culture, who wants to appropriate, if you're like, hey bro, go for it, nobody's really gonna care. You've always rocked crazy styles. You rock the man bun and a mohawk and this is just another phase for you. That's the problem. When they take our hairstyles and use it as just a phase or just a little bit of attention grabbing, that's the problem. But when you that's cool, it's just a phase, it's no big deal. You'll have another style in another 2 weeks.
I'm not.
You're part of the problem. You're corny.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm not surprised. Again, I'm not surprised at black men dropping the ball here.
They're the worst team in the NBA.
I'm not surprised. But Jeremy Lin, I think if he really had talked to maybe a more diverse group of black people among this, he might have got some different perspectives and maybe seen some of the things Princess is saying.
And you know what's crazy? I think the woman, Savannah, that he worked with, his colleague or whatever, works with the staff, I think that conversation that he had with her was a lot farther than what the guys told him. They were like, okay, whatever, I'll grow my dreads out with you. But even Savannah was like, well, maybe it'll give you a chance to learn. From that, he should have took another conversation with another black woman and said, okay, the black women are giving me the information here and something to actually process.
Great.
Let me build upon that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the guys are just gonna co-sign. They don't care. Hair to them is like, they get a haircut every 2 weeks. For us, it's a lot more upkeep. It's a lot more rooted in divinity and who we are and things like that. that, so he should have took that conversation that he had with that first black woman and prompted another one.
I agree, especially, and the good point she makes is black hair care for women is different than for men, especially also black women who are rocking their hair in their natural state as opposed to women who are adding chemicals or other things like that. If I think about who I think Jeremy Lin talked to, I do believe that sister's a natural hair rocking sister. I think I know who it is, and she is a natural hair rocking sister. I don't know too many others that work with the Nets, so I'm not sure they would have gave the same perspective, but that is what it's worth. We didn't get to some other stuff we wanted to talk to, but we're out of time on the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. We want to thank Princess, the first woman to ever be on the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. That's right, guys.
Thanks,
We do not call women females. That's not the thing. Don't do Cam Newton. Don't be like Cam Newton this week or anything beyond, and tell your young men, especially, not to use that. You're going to show a lot of respect to the first woman here on this podcast. She is one of the co-hosts of the W podcast, which you can find on iTunes, on SoundCloud. You can follow Princess with the great work she does. She's also in DC doing her thing. And we hope to have you back again.
Yes.
You going to come back?
Be back. Yes. Everybody's cool. You guys are cool. Production team is cool. I love what you guys are doing. Like,
thank you.
I love it. I'm so big on people just taking their own avenues. Like, and I can definitely see you guys going so far. I'm so proud of you guys. Like, I'm a big backpack broadcasting supporter even before I knew who you guys were. I'm just
Thank you. That's
always look at him smile from ear to ear. I got you
I have a wild
guys.
smile.
I got you guys.
He was really, and you know what's funny? I will say before we wrap up, every episode we always have to found a way to talk about his favorite rapper, Freddie Gibbs. And until now, I hadn't mentioned it, but now I got it in before the end. So you're looking at me like, yo, I don't even
if
know
you're
Freddie
watching
Gibbs is.
YouTube, though, you can see the sticker. So it doesn't,
See,
you know what I'm saying?
in
It's
some
there.
way,
That
he's
Black
there.
Jesus thing did kind of creep me out though.
But I explained it to you.
She's still not feeling it.
For
like
those
she's
of
not
you who-
feeling
nah,
Jeremy Lin's hair.
No, because that was a long story.
Princess, we don't know when you come back. We don't know if Jeremy Lin will still have dreads. Hopefully,
And hopefully I don't get towed next time I come back to New York.
we don't want that
impounded.
either.
Or we might take this to DC. This is a remote setup.
Yeah, we might have to come. We have to get the whole W podcast team with the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast.
Okay, a little crossover. I like that.
I think we should get that done. But another great episode. We want to thank you for being here. We hope the rest of your
Thank
time
you,
in New York is
guys.
good and your car does not get impounded. Special thanks to our entire crew here today. Producer Matthew Faniza, assistant producer Matthew Panico, Brandon Gordon filling in today as director of photography, and we have a friend of the program, Jeff Armstrong, just chilling here today. He just comes to watch.
He snapped some pictures.
He did take some pictures too. You know what? I respect. He took some pictures too.
I got you.
Yo, Prince is looking out. I'm about to leave him out. You can't be leaving people
He
out
acting like
that.
you just slacking. You came to work.
I can't put him out. But another great job by the whole crew. Done a great job through the 5 episodes. So we definitely want to thank them. We have more great things coming up on Ain't Here to Talk podcast. For Bryan Fonseca, Princess Streeter, I'm Dexter Henry. Till next time.